This happened to me sometime in 2016, sometime in the fall. I guess you could say it was around October, and as that was one of the months that starts to get very cold. Now, I was on a trail ride for a field trip with Pony Club at the time of this story, and every time I think of this story, I still am questioned about this for a long time. Now, to be completely and utterly honest, I was on a trail ride at a different barn. After I had my riding lesson in one stable I went to, the Pony Club members all went to this one barn where did Western Riding Trail Ride. Now, the trail ride was through the forest, and it was very beautiful. The scenery of it was absolutely amazing, especially if you have been wandering through the forest and even exploring for many years now. Since in Canada, it was a pretty nice area in the barn. No, I'm not going to explain the location or anything like that. But let's just say there were some things that are unexplainable that you might run into. Some that might be confusing, while others seem very frightening. Now, at the time, my of Pony Club members were all going on this little trail. This trail was a pretty big one, lasted about an hour, so it wasn't that long of a trail, but it might feel like it when it's not. So, we were on this trail, and I was at the very back of the trail as one horse I was riding didn't like anyone behind her, so I was cool with it. Most of the riders were up front and they were chatting, and I was just sticking behind, just looking around the area. I was admiring the view. It was very beautiful, really amazing. I just really enjoyed it. All of a sudden, I turned around and see that there was some antlers in the distance. At first, I thought maybe it might have been maybe it's just a deer walking around. We get a lot of deers in the area, so that could be one thing. But then I noticed that the face didn't exactly look like a deer at all. It looked like if it was a skeleton. I looked over to see that there was some creature. It did not notice me as it was looking at another direction. I looked to see that it looked like it might have been a Wendigo. By the looks of it, he turned around and ran off into the distance. I had no idea of what it wanted, but I'm just glad that it did not notice me, as things would have been a lot different if it did. For some context on what made this really absolutely confusing and horrifying, this happened sometime in 2019 before my mom and I, along with my brother, moved out of our hometown. This obviously was one that I would never forget. My mom and I really decided to order pizza as my dad suggested it since we didn't have really much food in the house and my dad got paid and needed some groceries the next day. We all didn't feel like cooking, so we ordered pizza. However, as the pizza came in, my brother and I started to notice something different about the pizza. We saw some silver parts in the pizza. That's when I told my dad, and with further inspection, he found out that there were razor blades in there. And the pizza box didn't even look like the actual pizza thing. It was looked really weird. So my mom said that they got it from someone that wasn't the pizza guy. And of course, when the actual pizza guy came with our pizza, we found out that the pizza that this random individual delivered us was the one with razors, probably something to cause harm. We throw that pizza out and we took the one that the guy brought us, and this is why you only check with the pizza deliveries that you're getting from if the pizza you have is real. This may just save your life. This happened sometime a year ago during the global pandemic, and this obviously really has me crazy, probably stir crazy to the point where I don't want to go into this certain trail. There was a certain trail that my mom and I used to take our dog to, and it was a pretty nice one. We went on this one trail, and it seemed to be pretty interesting, especially if you walk there and you've been walking there for a while. I was walking down the path with my mom, and our dog was running around like crazy. As we got closer, I looked to see that there was some certain signs saying beware, no trespassing, and private property. We were thinking that this was definitely private property after all, but why was the path free to the public? We were confused and we were about to head back, but then I looked over to see that there was someone or something in the distance. I couldn't really tell what it was. It definitely looked like a person as it was standing tall. Thinking nothing of it, I called my dog over and he complied. And as we were about to head back, whatever it was turned around and ran out the other direction. I obviously was quite confused at what this person was, but I had a feeling that he probably had something wasn't good. But as of this, it wasn't the kind of story to make you jump out of your pants or jump out of your seat. It's just a really confusing and even unsettling story. This happened to my friend, which we'll call her Joanna for the sake of this story. Joanna and her sister named Vanessa were in college at the university at the time, and they honestly came across something during the first part of the semester. In 2019, they were just getting into to university again after the summer break, which was her sister's first year in university. Of course, Joanna has been there, before she was, but they had a dumpster that was not far from the university, where it was at the back of the university, the assets. Now, since they were on campus, they ended up going there a few times a day, just to maybe throw some stuff that they don't need in the dumpster. Sometimes if they found anything valuable that still works really good, they'll look into it. However, one day as Vanessa and Joanna were walking past the dumpster, they heard some screeching and crying coming from the dumpster. At first, Joanna thought it could have been maybe a kitten in there, so they opened up the dumpster, but they were shocked to find something much worse. It was actually what seemed to be a monitor. It looked, or something like that, looked like a recorder of a baby crying. Now, this was obviously fake, so they quickly head back to the school and call the security campus and investigate the dumpster. They found out that whoever left that radio there was probably trying to lure some people into their sick trap. Whoever decided to do this probably obviously wanted to kidnap the girls, but this guy was never caught, and they still have no idea where he is or who did this as of today. They are unsure of who or what left that radio of a baby crying in that dumpster. This happened some time ago when I was a kid in the winter, I guess you could say in 2006. I was about 8 years old, and we had a lot of snow that year. I was playing in the snow with my brother in our backyard, and as we were playing in the backyard as normal, I looked over to see that there were someone or something calling out to us. I looked over to see that there was a young kid. He looked to be about maybe, I don't know, 8 or 9, same age as me. I looked over, but there was no one out there. Confused by this, my brother and I decided to follow this kid, and whatever this kid was vanished. This was quite confusing as we have never seen a kid out with this time before, and why didn't he not have winter clothes? That obviously confuses us to this point, and I obviously had no idea who or what this kid was. I had a feeling that there was no kid in the street that looked exactly like I described. He looked like he was wearing a t-shirt and shorts, and I asked everyone in the neighborhood, same with my parents, but they couldn't find who what it was. I have a feeling that whoever it was probably not real, but I believe what I encountered was completely paranormal. About maybe 4 or 5 years ago, this happened to one of my friends, which we'll call him Calvin for the sake of the story. Calvin was with his wife or girlfriend Rachel, and at the sake of the story, Calvin and Rachel had described to be seeing something really freaky. They decided to take a little walk through what seemed to be like a little national park in a place called Y Marsh. It was a really beautiful place where they have at least swamps and over that, and they had a few activities. In the summer, though, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6 even, Rachel and Calvin decided to go to Wye Marsh to spend at least the weekend there. As they were going to spend the weekend there, they ended up taking down a boardwalk path. It was a pretty nice path, to be honest. It was beautiful. But as they were walking, they looked to see that there was someone that they have not seen before. At first, they thought maybe it might have been a hiker or something, but it was too far away and he was wearing all black, so they assumed that it could be maybe just someone else they knew. As they were walking through the forest of the Wye Marsh area, they all of a sudden looked to see that there was that black figure again. He was standing around the trees and he wasn't standing too far close to them. Rachel and Calvin were obviously confused at this point. They think that maybe it could be maybe just some bear, or it could be a bear, but possibly that was so wrong as well, as it didn't look like a bear. It wasn't facing them, but it looked like a gorilla-sized shaped figure. He ran over to the other direction he was facing, while letting out a loud roar that kind of sent chills down Calvin and Rachel's spine. They reported to the authorities and even the rangers of the park, and they looked around to see if they could find that creature they saw, but they had no idea where it was or where it went, as they could not find it. There was no evidence as to what that creature was, but they assumed that it might be something that lived long ago, and hoped that they would never see it again.